everybody, it's Michael with Asymmetrical Preparedness. This video is about water. We have to have water to drink, to live. Water is essential to life. So, what I'm going to talk about is sources of water today. I'm not going to get into, cleaning water or anything like that. I'm going to talk about water sources and how important it is for you guys to identify sources of water where you live, around where you live, in neighboring areas, in neighboring communities, in neighboring counties, across your whole state, maybe even neighboring states, depending on where you live in relation to other states and how far away it is, and the likelihood of you maybe going there or having to be there in an event. SHTF, WROL, Teotihuacan, those kind of things. So, and I'm not just talking about knowing oh, I know there's this river over here. I'm talking about identifying all possible sources, meaning looking at Google Maps, Google Earth, things like that, using paper maps, locating streams, locating rivers, lakes, ponds, irrigation waterways for crops, for farms, pools in people's backyards. That may be a source that you have to utilize in a bad event, especially if you know they're not home. And I'm not talking about water storage also. I encourage you guys to store your own water, but that will only last so long unless you have an unlimited supply, or I don't know. What I'm getting at is not only identifying where these sources are, and I'm saying go exhaustive searches for these things. Even if you can find out where springs are, where wetlands are, where anything like that is. Also, when you identify creeks, is it a seasonal creek or is it a year-round creek? That's very important because a lot of creeks dry up in the summertime. So when is that water available? Where is it available? And then also the status of that water. Another good one is city and county, those big water towers where the city keeps some of its water. Reservoirs for city, county, etc. water supply. Watersheds, different things like that. There's a lot of different sources out there. Learn where the water table is. How deep is the water table in your area? So you know, okay, how can I dig a well? Using hand tools, or can you not dig a well using hand tools? If you have this information, you'll be much better off in a much better situation. So yes, all these different sources, and there's sources I haven't even gone into, but they're there. Another source is, a lot of people have hot water tanks. Well, in your hot water tank, there is water in there. Even if you lose power, there's water in there. There's water in a lot of different situations and a lot of sources. I want you guys to figure that out. I can try to sit here and brainstorm more ideas and stuff like that that may or may not apply to you, or the real way, the good way, is for you guys to do the research yourselves. Like I said, look at maps, look at Google Earth, Google Maps, other sources like that. Maybe cell phone apps. I'm not sure what all there is sources out there for different areas, especially tech type, like apps and stuff like that. I'm not a big tech guy. But okay, so, and then mark them. Get them like a paper map and mark them all out. Mark down where they are, what they are. Guesstimate flow rates. That's more difficult, but you might be able to figure out how to estimate like a flow rate. You might be able to estimate like a pond or something like that due to the dimensions of the pond, and maybe you might be able to figure out the depth. I don't know. guesstimate, at least right in the physical dimensions of like the surface area of the pond, or approximately how big the lake is. Stuff like this. If it's a lake, you're not going to run out of water. But people are going to be drawn to lakes, and not necessarily ponds per se, unless it's a big pond. Same with rivers, because they are water sources, just like animals are drawn to those areas because they have to have water. Same thing, in a bad event, people are going to congregate. Communities are going to form on lakes, on rivers, water sources. It's very important. So then, okay, you've identified a bunch of different sources, as many possible sources as you can. So then what you should do, what I would do, is take notes, or I would number all of them. And it doesn't matter how you number them. Use your own system of numbering. But then write on a piece of paper, notebook, whatever, a corresponding number and the information, like what it is, lake, pond, river, stream, whatever. And then, maybe write the dimensions there. And then go into water quality. Because different sources, the quality of the water may be different. You may have, one of them may be a mountain, a high altitude mountain lake that is crystal clear. You can see everything on the bottom 100 feet deep. Those exist. Not saying there's not bacteria in it, of course there is. But you know that water won't really have to be rough filtered, meaning you won't have a bunch of sediment to get out of it before you can use it. That's crystal clear water. You will still need to boil it, filter it, treat it, something like that, to get the bacteria out of it. Yes, I get it. But it'll give you a better picture of what all you have to do when you get to these different water sources. What do you have to have available to you to get clean water out of these various sources? You may have a pond that has a lot of, algae, different things like that in it, plant life. You may have a river that is, or a stream that's really muddy, really silty type area, because we all live in different areas. So we all have different environmental features and stuff that affect the water quality, water clarity, all those kind of things. The cloudier it is, the siltier it is. So it will need to be rough filtered. You can make a homemade rough filter out of. You can use coffee filters. You can use T-shirts. You can use any kind of clothing, any kind of cloth. You can use wool. You can use cotton. Those are the two I would recommend, is natural stuff, not synthetics. But yeah, and that would catch, if you do several different layers, that would catch a lot of the sediment. Get that goop out of there so it doesn't clog up your nice water filter and shorten the life of it. Unless you have filters like Sawyer Minis or Sawyer filters, which are back flushable. But still, you still want to take care of your filter, so pre-filter it. So with all this information available to you, you will be much better equipped to get yourself the water that it's going to take to keep you alive and to keep others around you alive. Think of as many features and factors as you can about these water sources. Also on the water sources, write down notes about the population density around them, any houses you see around them, any campsites, any boat launches, any picnic tables, any stuff like that, day use campsites, etc. Any boats you see on them, any kind of intelligence you can gather about this. Also, roads leading to these sources, trails leading to these sources, bike paths, footpaths, deer paths, etc. The more information you can gather about these water sources, the better, because then you can do a threat assessment. You can assess the likelihood of a threat being at each one of your water sources if an event happens. And you got to understand that the further into an event, your threat assessment will change. Your threat level will go way up. It'll go up and up and up and up over time, because water sources will be vital to people's survival. So build yourself up all this information you can get. The more information you can write down about this, the better. You can even write down, you could get a notebook, and use a page for each water source, because you've got a lot of information you can write down. You can also write down any wild edibles you noticed along the banks or en route or close proximity. What kind of trees there are around them. What kind of wildlife did you see? Just tons of information that you can gather about this. Also, is it heavily wooded? Is it wide open? What kind of distances are you looking at as far as if you're sitting there getting water that you can potentially be engaged at by a hostile force? Is it 300 yards across the lake and somebody sitting there with a rifle that may be engaging you in a bad situation in a chaotic environment? Or is it, a little mountain creek where the visibility, is heavily forested, and the visibility is going to be, 10, 20, maybe 30 feet, maybe yards, stuff like that. Write all this up. Also, the terrain features, the elevation it's at, how difficult is it to get to, how far away is it, and then also with these sources, also write down and keep track of multiple methods to get there, multiple ingress ways to get there, routes to take. This can be very important because you may be traveling to a water source and come across a roadblock that you're just not in the situation to deal with. So you got to just back out if you can and go another route. There's just so many things to think about. But water is, you guys know it. 3 days without water and you're dead. So we have to have water, and we can only store so much. So identify as many sources as you can. Identify the status of the water, the clarity, the potential contaminations involved with that water. If you're in a city, there may be a lot more potential contaminations. Like I see though in Southern California and a lot of other places, you got those big drainage, I don't even know what they're called. They're like big, like concrete rivers that flow, and they're for rainwater runoff, and I don't know what else they use those for. Like I said, I'm not that knowledgeable about those things. I've seen them in movies. I've seen them when I've been down in Southern California. I just can't recall what they use those for. I forget. They may be for irrigation and things like that also. But yeah, do gather up as much intelligence as possible, and do a threat assessment. Talk to others. Work within your group, your family, your friends, whoever you may be in this situation with, and cover as many topics as possible. Look at it from as many different angles as possible, and then kind of make some tentative plans. Like, okay, well, tentatively, because we don't know what's going to go down, how it's going to go down, where the threats are, stuff like that. But tentatively speaking, this is the first water source we're going to go to. And you don't want to wait till you run out. You don't want to wait till you run out of water, of course not. You want to start going to these water sources and gathering more water using every possible container you can gather or find. You need to do that as soon as possible, because you need to start gathering as much water as possible when an event happens. So think about these things, war game it, like I said, do threat assessments, all this kind of stuff. It will pay off in dividends big time. You guys will be very thankful you did this when an event happens. And then also identify, like I said, identify your primary, kind of go through and kind of put them in order. Say, okay, we're going to try to go here first, but if not, let's go here second, because this is the next best option. So kind of keep track of where they are, what the water sources are as far as best option, and that your threat assessment comes into that. Because even if you are well armed, well equipped, well trained, you have tactical teams, stuff like that, you still don't want to get into any kind of threat situation that you don't absolutely have to be in. Because no matter what, somebody's going to get injured, going to get killed, and then that person won't be there for you. you're going to lose a valuable asset. So you have to avoid conflict at all costs. Be ready for it, but avoid it. That's kind of off topic, but anyway, I hope this, empowers you guys, gives you guys some things to work on, some things to think about. Water is vital. I mean, I can't say anything more about that. Prep a little every day. Please be doing the things. Please be working on your fitness. And along with water, right here, hydrate. Hydrate often, especially now that it's summertime. Keep up on your hydration, because one thing is I know this is kind of a, maybe being a little bit of a fear monger, but not really. You never know when an SHTF event's going to happen. An EMP could happen at any moment and shut everything down, and then you're SOL and you're walking home. Are you hydrated to start your journey with? If you keep yourself hydrated, you can have some extra water, sure. But if you start your journey dehydrated and then you got to try to play catch up, not good. Keep yourself hydrated. And prep out of peace of mind, not out of fear. That's what this is, just like investing for your future. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day, and blessings to you and yours.